Hello, and welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of sports and in the world of college basketball. The national
Comes
championship
down to
game
two.
is set to remain. The Kansas Jayhawks and the North Carolina Tar Heels are
And who
set to
called it? Both
duke
of
it out in
us.
New Orleans. And oh boy, did we predict that. For those of you who watched and commented on the Elite Eight video, we saw every single comment. We appreciate your support. We appreciate all the love. It means the world to us. We both got Kansas UNC. We are very, very proud of that. But we have a couple games to recap and a national championship to predict. So, Tim, are you ready to go?
Let's run it.
Before we get into any of the national championship madness, how did we do in the Final Four? And we just told you we went 2-0. We both had
Feels good, man.
Kansas and UNC. It feels good. A perfect round. It's very rare in March Madness, but
It's a lot easier when you only have two games to pick, but I'll take the perfect round nonetheless.
Absolutely. That brings my total record up to 44-18. And Tim, your record goes to 41-21, which is a very, very good record for March Madness. It puts us around about 65-70% win percentage. I haven't done the math off the top of my head, but I think that's what we're around. I don't know. It's pretty good. A lot more games won than lost. So let's get into how the games went. And the first game on the table is Kansas and Villanova. That Final Four matchup, Kansas won by a score of 81-65. Kansas came out of the gate shooting hot. They were absolutely on fire. Jumped out to a quick 10-0, 12-2 run. And once Villanova found their groove and they settled in, it took them a few minutes, but they hung with Kansas the rest of the way, matching them about point for point. But that like 10, 15 point deficit that Kansas created early, Villanova just couldn't overcome. And Kansas moves on to the national championship. You know, one thing to note about the Kansas Jayhawks performance is that they shot lights out from 3-pointers. They were 54% from three, which is absolutely wild. Ochai Agbaji was 6 for 7 from three with 21 points on the day, but he wasn't even
only made threes.
He wasn't even the leading scorer on the Jayhawks. David McCormack, the big man, was credited for 25 points, and he went 10 for 12 from the field. So a big day for Kansas. And on the Villanova side, they had a couple guys that had some really good games. Colin Gillespie dropped 17. He was 5 for 8 from three. Caleb Daniels, he had 16 of his own, I believe, but they just couldn't keep pace with Kansas. Kansas has continued that momentum that they showed in the Elite Eight against Miami. They rocketed right past Villanova in the Final Four, and they have just jumped headfirst into the national championship game.
Yeah, when looking at this game, it's hard not to point directly towards Kansas's offense once again. They just put on an offensive masterclass, sort of picking apart. Obviously, they got off to that great start, and they sort of kept coasting throughout the rest of the way. There was times that Villanova did sort of throw something at them, like a little zone or something different, and it granted it did some things to Kansas where it's like they kind of had to readjust, but once they readjusted, it was right back to business as usual. And like you said, they shot a great percentage, especially from three. This is a great performance by David McCormack down low. They really need him to keep playing like he has in these last couple of games. He's made himself a lot much more of a presence than he has been for a lot of the season. But they still allowed their guard play to shine, of course. And on the Villanova side, we knew that we were going to be beat up. They were going to be kind of scrappy, trying to do whatever they could. And once they kind of found their footing, that's exactly what they did. They had some guys step up in the absence of other guys. And the overall relatively solid. It was just Kansas offense is really, really, really hard to stop. And they put 81 on them. And that's the Villanova team that has sort of paved their way through this tournament with their gritty defensive performances. And Kansas kind of just shook that off and said, we'll do what we want to do, and that's what this game was all about.
Tim, another aspect of Villanova's performance that I want to take a look at a little bit is you mentioned how important free throws are. Villanova shot 80% from the line. They were 8 for 10. They weren't perfect. Was that the reason why they lost? I mean, obviously not. It's just funny.
2 points would not have saved them. They obviously 80% is still pretty darn good for pretty much every team except for Villanova.
Just not up to the lofty standards that the best free throw shooting team in college basketball history has set for themselves. Where when they step to the line, it's like they're never going
to go in.
You expect to go.
It definitely would have helped them if they could have gotten to the free throw line more.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you would always like to get more than around 10 attempts. It sort of would have helped them get more points when their offense really wasn't quite flowing. But I think that was just more of the nature of this game. They turned themselves a lot into jump shooters, and Kansas defense did do well to sort of deter them from making their money sort of in and around the basket area, and did well of guarding the drive. So a great overall performance by Kansas. I mean, I've been riding them the whole way, and it's really shown with the way that
worked out for you so far.
Very, very hard to stop.
You've been riding with Kansas since the Big 12 video, since we did that one. You picked them as their conference champion. They won the conference championship, and then they've just steamrolled everybody in their path since. But we had another game, and this one was arguably the best game. Duke, UNC in the Final Four. Way. And oh boy, did it live up to the hype. Mike Krzyzewski, will he continue the dream run, or will Hubert Davis and the upstart Tar Heels ruin it? Well, we thought that the Tar Heels would ruin it, and they did, winning 81-77. This was arguably the game of the year. Back and forth all game. Neither team gave an inch, and UNC was just barely able to squeak out a victory in another chapter of what is the most historic rivalry in college basketball. And it's only fitting that this is the game that we got for Coach K's last game. It would have been a great story for it to continue, but now, North Carolina, it's funny because they'll forever have the last laugh in that rivalry where UNC not only handed Coach K his first loss, but his final home loss and his final loss.
Those three are a real trifecta that UNC fans are going to hold on for a real long time.
It's a real stinger. But just for how crazy this game was, it was not decided until maybe about 20 seconds left in the game when Caleb Love pulled up from three at the top of the key.
That was a dagger.
An icy dagger right through the heart.
There's something like Caleb Love in the second half.
Cold, unconscious.
Caleb Love in the second half of games are a match made in heaven, because the past two games, really a lot in this tournament, he has just turned it on in the second half, and really just got his money when defenses start getting tired, and he just gets going. And he had another fantastic performance today, and it really helped North Carolina come on top in this one.
100%. He had 28 points on 11 from 20 from the field, which
he had sort of like iffy shot selection.
He was not afraid to shoot. The confidence was there, but he was making more than he missed. And
when you shoot 11 for 20, I mean, you still really can't complain about even though you see some of the individual ones. There's like, I don't really know about the shot selection there. But it's a bit.
Do we think he's earned it at this point, at this stage in the career, in this stage of the tournament? I think he's earned it.
With what he's done for this team throughout not only the season, but especially throughout the NCAA tournament, he absolutely deserves the fact to take some of those heat check shots to see if he can just make something happen.
Yeah, screw it, throw it up. Why not? But another guy that was a real contributor for UNC was Armando Bacot. And he was so big.
Tough.
He was so big in UNC winning the Battle of the Boards. Armando Bacot, out of the 50 rebounds.
21 rebounds.
The Tar Heels came down with 50 boards in the game. Armando Bacot had 21 by himself, 13 on the defensive glass and 8 on the offensive glass.
He was just a bully all game.
A double machine.
Yeah.
He's so key for, limiting second chances for Duke and creating second chances for the Tar Heels. Without him, without Caleb Love, like those two guys in particular, the Tar Heels aren't going to the national championship, and that is for darn sure.
Yeah,
So
when you see a stat line of 11 and 21, you probably assume that the 21 is points and the 11 is your rebounds. But
not
no,
for
for
Armando
Armando
Bacot.
Bacot, it's the complete opposite. Dude was just a mean dude all game on the glass. And one of the things that I noticed is that ankle injury that he came down with in the second half. He couldn't put any weight on it right away. Mm-hmm. They helped him off the floor. He started gingerly walking towards the locker room, and he didn't even get all the way in there. He just decided, no, I'm going to be able to fight through this. He jogs his way back to the floor, immediately checks back in, goes right back to doing
that's
his thing.
tougher than any of the boards he came down with. Are you kidding me?
He is a player, and you could tell how much he wanted it in that moment. He was not going to let himself get subbed out of that game for long. So just a real bad one. One of the things that I think highlighted for me as a game as a whole, we go right back to what we were talking about in last matchups for the previous round, free throws. North Carolina, 17 for 24. They shot the ball relatively well from the free throw line, and they got there a lot. And one of the things for that is they got Duke's big men in foul trouble early. You got 2 quick fouls on Mark Williams, and then you bring in the backup is Theo John, I believe. And Theo John gets 4 fouls in the first half. And a lot of those, of course, are in and around the basket, leading to free throws. But of course, on Duke's side, and this proved crucial towards the end of the game, they shot 12 for 20 from the free throw line. So they left quite a few points at the free throw line, and 2 of those being 2 key free throws in the last couple of minutes by Mark Williams. He missed both ends of a 2-shot foul. And that really killed him towards the end there when they were trying to cut that lead and make it close, make it a 1-possession game. So, I mean, once again, scratching the old record, but it's free throws really win and lose games. And this was the case once again, but overall an unbelievable game to watch. So much talent on both sides, and credit to Duke and all of those guys, to make it this far with the guys that they had. Obviously they have a lot of young guys, so people thought the inexperience would come back to bite them. I'm not sure if it's the inexperience that really got them in this game. North Carolina just played a really good game and hit the shots when it mattered.
Absolutely. In a game that had 18 lead changes and 12 ties, this will definitely go down in the history books as one of the all-time greats. But now that we know who the competitors in the national championship are, let's predict the game. Kansas, UNC. Tim, we'll start with you. Who do you have in the 2022 men's basketball national championship?
It's really tough for me because when you think about it, it's like, these are the 2 teams that I have been riding the whole way. They're 2 teams I've been extremely high on. North Carolina obviously came into the tournament.
Oh, well, aren't you just a Mr. Smart? You're just a Mr. Smart guy, aren't you?
Hey, I mean, I picked the right teams to go all the way, I guess. But it's really tough because you've got UNC who came into this tournament playing some of their best basketball with some of the games they played going into the ACC tournament and whatnot. And they put together some really, really solid games throughout this tournament. But you've got Kansas, of course, who has obviously came in one of the number 1 seeds, has been playing very good basketball, rarely has slipped up. And throughout the tournament, they've done everything they've needed, even in some of the close games that they've played, to come out on top. And especially in these past few, you've seen their offense really start getting going. And I think what it comes down to me, I think it just comes down to the team that I think is going to get shaken less and is going to be able to make the right shots at the right time. And you talk about those true, real big game leaders. And absolutely UNC has those. But I look at this Kansas team as one of the best built teams in terms of the talent at certain positions and the way they utilize each other. It's really hard for me, obviously, as I've said throughout all of this, to vote against Kansas. And I won't here. I'm going to stick with the Jayhawks to be the national champions coming out of this year.
The Kansas Jayhawks hoisting the national championship. And you make a good point about guys that can make shots in big games and just the way this roster is built. Kansas runs incredibly deep. They can always have fresh legs because
2 teams that are the complete opposite of each other in terms of in that aspect. UNC just sticks with their starters and they're going to run them to death trying to win that game, while Kansas will go and they'll keep running different guys at you, switching things up. and forcing you to face different matchups and deal with different guys while also keeping a lot of guys fresh.
Yeah, it forces any team that they're playing to stay on your toes. But as for who I have in the national championship game, you know, what North Carolina has done, I'll start with the Tar Heels, you know, they're gritty. They have heart. They have everything that you would want in a national championship team. They've showed that they could fight as underdogs. They fight through adversity. You know, when it hits the fan, they can answer the bell. They have tons of guys that can do that. Guys like Caleb Love, Armando Bacot, Brady Manick, even Leaky Black.
They got scorers all around the floor. Yeah.
They got guys that can really step up in situations. But quite frankly, what I've seen from Kansas in the last 3 halves of college basketball, starting after the halftime against Miami.
Second half against Miami was just unreal.
They continued it right through the Final Four, and there's no better, no more fundamentally sound. There's no deeper team, and there's no more on fire team. Whatever adjectives you want to use to describe them, there's nobody better in the nation right now than the Kansas Jayhawks. Bill Self will take home the national championship trophy. Ochai Agbaji, Christian Braun, DeJuan Harris, they will be hoisting up the national championship trophy when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I mean, like we've talked about, Kansas is just, they're one of the deepest teams. They're one of the hottest teams, and their offense is what really blows my mind. Now, granted, North Carolina has shown that on the defensive end, they have been able to get stops when they need to, but they haven't always necessarily, especially in this past game, Duke did do a pretty good job of scoring the ball on them. And it's going to be a game of matchups, as pretty much it always is. You're going to look at some of the highlights of the guard play with Ochai Agbaji and Caleb Love and Leaky Black and those guys. But then you look at the matchup down low as well, and you're going to see Armando Bacot battling against David McCormack, and then whoever Kansas decides to try to put on Brady Manick. You've got a lot of individual matchups that are going to be super fun to watch, and you're just going to see of who comes out on top of those individual matchups, because that's what it's going to come down to. As much as team play is really important, as you saw in both of these games, especially the Duke North Carolina game, when it gets late, who are the guys that you go to in the one-on-one, in this pick and roll, that are just going to go out and make plays?
Yeah, I mean, both of these teams are incredibly deserving. They fought hard to get to this point, and it's going to be an incredible national championship game. And may the best team win for whoever is going to hoist the trophy at the end of the day, being national champions. But that is all we got for our national championship predictions. Thank you to all of you who have been sticking with us throughout the journey through this entire college basketball tournament. It's been an absolute blast to cover. We've enjoyed every second of it, and we appreciate every one of you for sticking with us.
Hey, make your picks for the national championship down below in the comments. I want to see who else
want to see more in the
this
comments.
One with us.
We got a lot of good discourse on the last episode.
Love that. Love seeing everybody else and what they feel about our picks.
Absolutely.
Just the game itself.
Yeah. Are we idiots, or do we have it spot on? Let us know.
All depends on the day.
Exactly. But if you want to watch more of our stuff on YouTube, you can do that. We have a bunch of stuff here on Running the Table, or you can find us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and where other podcast platforms, you can listen to us anywhere else. So until next time, we out.